We have 4 stories to break down today. Learn the latest news behind our efforts to sign Gvardiol, as well as some surprising news around Kylian Mbappe too. To move on, we have an official staff appointment today, and we discuss the behind closed door friendly victory, which is a 5-1 win over Brentford. So tons of things to break down and discuss. I hope you guys enjoy. Share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section too. But before we get into anything, let me get one big plug out of the way first. Right now, there is a new episode of the Last Fan Standing series on Bet Victor's YouTube channel. So I'm going to play you guys a brief clip.
What, Gabriel Jesus? What do you think
in terms of the importance of the team and what he means to them? Because whilst I think, yes, he didn't score all their goals, he still had a healthy amount of goals. He didn't score all their goals. He was a lot more to the team than just his goals.
Now, in my opinion, I feel like Jesus' injury has basically just finished Arsenal's season. Tactically, he's too important for them. I mean, not only does he press from the front, but he is like that offensive glue in their team. He links the midfield and the attack. If he's not scoring goals, then he's making assists for his teammates. And I just think that a forward like this is too big of a loss, and there's no direct replacement to maintain that standard in the team. In my personal opinion, I think that after this World Cup, we're going to see a completely different Premier League season, considering that so many guys have mental fatigue as well as physical fatigue from playing like 120 minutes every single game, playing games every few days, to come back to the Premier League after barely any rest or time off. It's going to be quite hard and quite difficult. So you'll find a full link to the episode in the card above and in the description below. So let's get back to the main stories I brought today. So let's kick things off and let's discuss staff appointment news, as today it's finally being confirmed and it's official. We have signed Christoper Vivell acting as our new technical director from RB Leipzig. Now, this move has been in the works for the past few months now. We were finally able to get the clearing now for Vivell to join us, and for me this is a big move and it's a step in the direction that Todd BOEHLY wants to take this club towards. He wants to create a sustainable model that is constantly able to, push to fight for trophies season in and season out, and to be that type of club where you're not relying on, players in the market or spending hundreds of millions every single window to compete. You need to have a sustainable culture and model, and to make that work, you need to have everyone at the top levels, all the staff, the directors, scouts, etc., buying into that same unifying vision, and that is the key to sporting success in my opinion. So let's hear some of the first quotes come out from Mr. Vivell today, as he says, "Chelsea are building the most exciting project in global football, and I'm extremely proud to be joining the club. There is so much potential for the club to continue to succeed, develop and grow. Under the new ownership, Graham Potter and the broader sporting team, there is a clear and sustainable philosophy underpinned by performance analysis, data and innovation, and I am looking forward to playing a part in that." For me, the key words here being building. Vivell has key words here being building. Vivell signed today to enforce the medium to long-term strategic plans at this football club. We all know that Project 2030 is the big project for this decade that we're actually building and working towards, and that will be a combination of more homegrown talents plus young talents, and getting ready to build that team for the future. I'd always say that my main criticism of our previous ownership was that there was no sustainability whatsoever. So anytime we had one great season, that did not continue forward to the next season, and that can't work like that. You need to have periods of momentum, and you have to take advantage of those periods. For me, to be a club that is striving to win trophies every single season, you need to have a strategy, and for that strategy to be successful, time is needed, and time is needed in the forms of things like signing the right players, waiting for the right guys to sign for the club, waiting for the players to understand the manager's tactical demands a lot more, and of course allowing for younger players with talent to grow and achieve their potential. Realistically, we have to accept, in my opinion, that we need a project and we need to be patient. I think for me now, the reality simply is the direction of the club needs something more sustainable and more long-term, and the way we used to do things before is not foolproof and it's not future-proof, and it is time for a change. In my opinion, I'm more than happy to wait and be patient, knowing that there is a unified plan that many departments across the club are actively working towards. That is the key difference here, and that gives me faith that something can come from this, and I guarantee in the next few years, we're going to reap the rewards from this process and from these staff changes. So welcome to the club, Mr. Vivell. And now moving on to the next stories. So right now, let's turn our attentions to the behind closed door friendly win over Brentford, where we won 5-1, courtesy of a hat-trick from Kai Havertz. So that's promising news. You know, Kai Havertz scored a decent amount of goals at the World Cup. I mean, he always scores for the national team, so if he can, bring that form forward to the start of the new season, I'd be more than happy from that, because even though Kai does frustrate us, there is still a player here, and I still think it's up to the role of the coach and the manager to bring the best out of his game. But moving on, you guys, of course, the win against Brentford, a team that has notoriously been our bogey team over these past few seasons, it did come at a loss. And that loss was Wesley Fofana, who will now be out for up to 1 more month. And that's because in the game he picks up an injury, and scans today confirm the fact that it's a reoccurrence of his stretched knee ligament, which he originally picked up all the way back in October. So I don't really think this is any signs or proof that Fofana is injury prone. We have to remember that he picked up a leg break for Leicester City. That's not a reoccurring leg break. These are completely different injuries to what he originally faced. So let's hope that he can come back quite soon. I mean, it must be incredibly frustrating knowing that you've worked so hard to get ready for the start of the season. But I guess this will be an opportunity for your Jalabers, your Koulibalys, and many others to, really fight for their place in that team with Fofana out. But to move on, we got an understanding behind some of the squad selections and players that played in the friendly last night. So this was a team that was a combination of many players that returned back from the World Cup, as well as the talented youth players that are really impressing Potter at this point in time. So players like Rankin, players like Hutchinson, Hall, and Webster as well too. We know that Reece James played 60 minutes versus Brentford, so I'm looking forward to seeing James return back versus Bournemouth. I mean, we look like a completely different team without James playing for us. But we also found out that Mason Mount didn't take part in the game after carrying a small knock at this point in time. So let's see if he is going to be ready for the start of the Premier League season. Still though, the fact that we scored 5 goals and key players were involved, of course, in those goals too, that is very promising. And let's hope that once the Premier League restarts again, we're going to see a completely different Chelsea team under Graham Potter. So right now, it's time to discuss some of the big transfer stories of today. We turn our attentions to Spanish reports as they report on Kylian Mbappe and Mbappe's willingness to want to leave Paris Saint-Germain to find pastures new. Now you might be wondering, why are we involved in this story? What do we have to do with anything involving Kylian Mbappe? Bear with me, you guys, I'll get through to that. But essentially, to give you guys some backstory behind the reports, they're basically saying this: Mbappe now wants a change of scenery. He wants to take part in a new sporting project. He feels a bit disappointed with the project at Paris Saint-Germain, which is a little bit confusing because didn't they just recently hire Luis Campos? They brought in a manager that the players actually like and gets them to play attractive football, and they sign a lot of smart players, which actually allows the attacking players to do what they do best, which is attack. So, I mean, let's see what happens with that. The reality is, though, Mbappe's contract does expire in 2025. So once it gets to next summer, he has 2 years left. And normally that is like the signal for other interested parties to make an offer and make their move to attract a player. Now in the report, it does say that Mbappe is hoping to dramatically reduce his wages to really attract more clubs to show interest in him. And by doing so, he is hoping that Paris Saint-Germain sell him for under 150 million euros. The report really stresses that Mbappe is angry at Paris Saint-Germain, but I'm not really understanding the context, to be honest. But anyway, reports say that us, Liverpool and Man United are showing concrete efforts alongside Real Madrid, of course, over the availability of Mbappe. So I guess I'm going to share some thoughts and opinions. It has been interesting. There have been a lot of rumours that Mbappe is actually Todd Boehly's favourite player, and if there was any opportunity to do business, he will obviously have to try. And to be fair, as fans, if Mbappe was available, I think we'd all want us to see our club at least try to entice him and try to do something for him. I mean, there's no excuses for that. I don't really understand the viability of the story though, in my opinion, but I guess it gives you something to think about and to have fun with. On one hand, I guess ideally the Premier League could really do with some more superstar players in the league, and I guess Haaland and Mbappe being the faces of the Premier League could be, for this generation, what Ronaldo and Messi were to the previous one. And I think the Premier League, even though it's like the biggest league in the world, we don't always have these superstar individuals, and I think Mbappe could be a nice change of direction. At the same time too, maybe I might sound really wrong for saying this, so you guys let me know in the comments, but on one hand, is Mbappe just too good for us? And I'm going to sound like really mad, I know, but my thing is, I just can't imagine Mbappe chasing lost balls or running after overhit passes. I dare a single Chelsea player to overhit a pass to Mbappe. Like the top players, there's a certain level of quality that they actually demand. Because if Mbappe can't get the right service, then how can he play his best game? I mean, this is a player that gets you 35 goals plus a season. He's one of the superstars in the world. And these guys, they care so much about their stats, their assists, their records, their goals. They're not going to go to any club that's going to jeopardize how they play football. So even if there was like this remote small possibility that Mbappe could be a target for us, I think we have to actually level up like we've never seen before to actually be able to take advantage of Mbappe's qualities. Because I'm not going to lie, right now, obviously, where do you guys really see him playing realistically? I'm not too sure. Still, I guess it is going to be quite interesting. The fact that Barcelona really have no money, when could they really afford Mbappe? Real Madrid have just signed Endrick, and you'd probably imagine that Endrick and his team wanted some guarantees and assurances that they wouldn't have to worry about guys like Mbappe and Haaland. So I guess the Premier League could be a realistic destination. And you'd like to think that we have the projects and the funds to be able to beat competition from Liverpool and United and even City if they showed interest. But again, I just feel like this is a story where maybe it's the start of like more rumours and small inklings that Mbappe does want out, but we won't get more clarity until the season does progress. So let's actually watch this space at this point in time. I still think it's a crazy silly story, but sometimes in these reports, there's always these little bits of information that come out that do end up painting a picture for the future. So we end things by discussing the latest news behind our efforts to sign Gvardiol from RB Leipzig. Currently, we are in a battle with Real Madrid to sign Gvardiol. For me, I think it's just incredibly greedy from Real Madrid. I mean, you look at their defense, Militao, Rudiger, Alaba, Nacho Fernandez, etc, etc. Is Gvardiol even guaranteed game time if he was to sign for them? I mean, Rudiger's become like a squad defender at Real Madrid. So far, it's Alaba and Militao. So I don't know. I just feel like if I'm Gvardiol right now, you need a lot of assurances from Real Madrid that they really see you as that guy, because I think it's going to be a bit of a battle to get minutes. I think we're a much better proposition for a player like this, knowing that there is availability in the team. There's a lot of like love and care shown by us to actually get him to sign for us. And I think he would be able to play his best football here, one of the top leagues in world football. So we definitely have that in our favour. But of course, our plan right now is to sign him in January and then wait for him to join us in the 23-24 season, which would make quite a lot of sense. And you'd like to think that Leipzig may feel, well, listen, if we're starting the next summer window with like over 150 million to spend to reinvest in the squads, it makes sense to sell him right now, knowing that we have even more time now to reinvest those funds into signing replacements. Now, there's been many valuations flowing between 78 million to 110 million. Reports do say that since Gvardiol signed that new contract extension, there was a new release clause inserted in that deal set at around 100 million. So that doesn't necessarily mean that clubs have to exercise that, but if you can pay close to that amount of money, then of course you can do business with Leipzig. As Gvardiol has said many times, his agent is going to sort out his future. He understands that of course we're showing a lot of interest, and it's quite obvious that he is interested in signing for us. As the player said, I'm focused at the club right now. Watch this space for next season. Now, earlier this afternoon, I did put out a poll to get just like a quick estimation on how people actually view Gvardiol and whether they like to see him at our football club. Now, of course, Gvardiol is one of the top defensive talents in the world, but he comes at a great expense. And some fans feel like, does it not make more sense actually to reinvest the Gvardiol money into other important areas in the squads, and then maybe just develop your Levi Colwills, who's showing great potential and ability so far in a few games actually for Brighton? I understand both sides. I also understand the fact that there could be a reality in which both Cole and Gvardiol actually play in the same team together, and I'd like to think that the club are actually seeing the same thing too, because Cole is actually one of the best young defenders in England at the moment. So there is definitely something that could be done to make sure that we're building one of the best young defensive units in European football, and maybe in the future you're looking at a potential back three of Gvardiol, Cole and Wesley Fofana, and if you have guys like Trevor Chalobah outside there as well too, and Koulibaly, I mean that's an incredibly impressive defensive five in my opinion, and that defensive three of Fofana, Cole and Gvardiol could be one of the best defensive units in world football in the next few years. So let's watch this space, let's see what happens. But today you guys, that's all the latest news that dropped today. Share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about these crazy Mbappe reports? Let us all know. And on that note, I'm NEFC, this is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.